Good morning, everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we'll be talking about immunology, and we'll be briefly discussing the innate immune system. And on the innate immune system, we are going to specifically talk about the inflammation process. So, before I begin, I would like you to hit on the subscribe button to subscribe to this channel. Alright, so let's get started. So, immunology is basically about how the immune system fight against diseases, or how the body fights against diseases. And the immune system is broken down to two major components: the innate immune system and the adaptive immune system. So the innate immune system is actually the initial defense mechanism that is initiated when pathogens arrive in the body, and the adaptive immune system is long term. Alright, so let's talk of the innate immune system. So under the innate immune system, we have the physical and chemical barriers. We have inflammation. We have the complement system. Then we have the immune cells. The immune cells also have their specific role they play in the innate immunity, and sometimes we have the tool-like receptor systems, which are mostly used to nullify viral pathogens. Alright, so under the adaptive immunity, we have is basically the adaptive immunity basically involves the lymphocytes. So whether B lymphocyte or T lymphocyte. It also involves what? The plasma cells. Then we also have immunoglobulins. Alright, so now our focus today is going to be about the inflammation process. Alright, so let's talk about inflammation. When we talk about inflammation, what are we trying to mean? Inflammation is simply the body's compensatory mechanism to get rid of pathogens and damaged cells. So all you have to know is that inflammation is what? The body's compensatory way to get rid of what? Number one, talk about pathogens. Number two, talk about what? Dead or what? Damaged cells. Alright, so inflammation has 5 cardinal signs. So let's talk about the 5 cardinal signs of inflammation. So number one, we have redness. We have heat. We have swelling. We have loss of function. Then we have so we have redness, we have heat, we have loss of function, we have swelling, and finally we have what we call the pain. That is pain. Okay, so these are the 5 cardinal signs of inflammation. So every inflammation process has to exhibit one of these 5 cardinal signs. Now let's talk about the main stages of inflammation. So stages of inflammation. Okay, so first of all, number one, we have the initiating stage. This is the first stage of the inflammatory process. Then we have the vascular phase, then we have the cellular phase, then we have the resolution phase. So the initial phase is where the pathogen recognizes, and the immune cells recognizes the pathogen, and then begins to initiate its binding effect. So the moment the immune cell binds to the pathogen, it triggers a series of vascular events by the release of certain substances we call chemokines and cytokines. These cytokines causes some vascular activities that leads to to certain cellular events, and finally to resolving the inflammation. So let's take the stages one after the other. So let's talk about the initiating phase. Okay. So in this initiating stage, this is what happened. The immune cells. So what you have to know is that immune cells recognizes what pathogens that have something we call PAMPs, also known as what pathogen associated molecular patterns. Molecular patterns. Or they recognizes what dead cells by their we also have something we call DAMPs, which also means damage associated molecular patterns. So these PAMs and DAMs, they are molecular signatures that allows the immune cells to identify them. They are molecular signatures that allow the immune cells to identify them. For instance, when we talk about the pathogen-associated molecular patterns, examples can be, we have the lipopolysaccharides in what? In gram-negative bacteria. In gram-negative what? Bacteria. Then we also have double-stranded RNA. We also have single-stranded RNA. We also have peptidoglycan layer. So these patterns or these structures are mostly found on the surface of the pathogen, and they are recognized by the immune cells. So this is what actually happened. All right. Now, the immune cells also have receptors we call pathogen recognition receptors. So the immune cells also have receptors we call pathogen recognition receptors. That is pathogen recognition receptors. And this pathogen recognition receptor is what binds to the pathogen associated molecular patterns whenever the immune cells finds the pathogen. So the PRRS, these are receptors, they bind directly to the pathogen associated molecular patterns or the damage associated molecular patterns to trigger a series of inflammatory events. Now let's look at how this process works. So first of all, what we have to ask ourselves is that how does the immune cells identifies these pathogen associated molecular patterns or these pathogens or damaged cells? Now there's something we call immunosurveillance. The immune system is constantly moving. The immune cells, they are constantly moving in the bloodstream. They are looking for pathogens, and this immunosurveillance is controlled by chemotaxis events. Chemotaxis influences influences. And examples of these ones are the chemokines. Chemokines. Now, chemotaxis actually means the use of chemical signals to what? To send immune cells to target sites where an inflammation is occurring. So this chemotaxis ensure that the immune cells that are patrolling in the bloodstream are targeted towards specific sites where the inflammation is what is occurring. So that is how the immunosurveillance is what is ensured. So constantly the immune system, the immune cells are what are patrolling, and then they are always directed to pathogens sites, or the site of the inflammation. Now, when the immune cells, for instance, let's consider this to be our pathogen with a flagellum. The flagellum is also an example of what? Of a pathogen associated molecular pattern. Pathogen associated molecular pattern. So the flagellum is also an example of PAMS. So when the immune cell, let's consider this our immune cell to be about our macrophage with the pathogen recognition hot receptors here too. Okay. So what happens is that when the immune cells recognizes this particular pathogen associated molecular pattern, the PRRS binds the what? Pathogen associated molecular hot patterns, and this binding occurs by direct contact. All right. So this is what actually happens. So this is our bacteria here, the flagellum, as its pathogen associated molecular pattern. Then we have um, our immune cell here binding. Okay, we have our immune cell here binding. This is our macrophage. So when this binding occurs, what happens is that it triggers the nucleus of the what? Of the immune cells to produce substances we call what? Chemokines. Chemokines and what? And cytokines. And these substances include, we have histamines. We have the prostaglandins, and sometimes nitric oxide. We also have bradykinins. Then for the cytokines, we have the interferons. We have the tumor necrosis factors, etc. So these cytokines and chemokines, they are going to initiate the what? The vascular response. Now let's talk about the vascular response, which is the second stage. So in the vascular response, what happens is that these chemokines, let me label the chemokines with a red ink. So these substances, which are also known as what? The chemokines, what they do is that they interact. So they come here and then they interact with the what? With the endothelium. That is the walls of the what? Of the vascular system or the blood vessels, and this causes the smooth muscles to expand. And once the smooth muscles expand, what happens is that there is a lot of blood flow into the what? Into the vascular compartment, and this expansion is what we call what? Vasodilation. And once there is an influx of blood in the vascular compartment, it leads to one of the cardinal signs we call what? Redness. All right. So remember that the vascular compartment has a lot of what? Red cells and blood cells and platelets, all of them what? Circulating. So this is what happened. So once the interaction occurs, it begins to what? Expand and causes what? Vasodilation. Now once the expansion occurs, the endothelium becomes permeable. The endothelium becomes very permeable or weak. And this permeability is also as a result of the interaction between what? The cytokines, that's the histamine, prostaglandins, leukotrienes. So we have histamines, we have leukotrienes, we have prostaglandins, we have bradykinins, etc. So these cytokines affect the endothelium, or interact with the endothelium to also cause what? Permeability of the endothelium. And this permeability also allows what? Fluid to move from the vascular compartment into the what? Into the interstitial space. So there is going to be a lot of fluid exudate here, and this leads to also another cardinal sign we call what? Swelling. Okay, now what happens when there is an extensive pressure? The extensive pressure of the what? Of the fluid exudate presses against what? Nearby nerve cells, or nearby what? Pain receptors. And this extensive pressure activates the pain receptor towards to induce pain. So that is why we also have one cardinal sign we call what? Pain. And also bradykinin is also one of the what? One of the mediators that ensures, or one of the what? Cytokines that induces what? Pain. So they mostly what? Activate the nerve endings of the what? Of the pain nerves, or they activate the endings of the pain receptors to what? To ensure that there is an induction of what? Of pain. So that is why we also feel pain. So the bradykinin is one of the major what? Substances or cytokines that is responsible for the inducing of what? Of pain. Alright, so basically that is this, and eventually all of these what? Cardinal signs or cardinal processes will lead to what? Loss of function. Loss of what? Of function. So we have redness, we have swelling, we have loss of function, we have what? Pain. Okay, so these are the what? The cardinal signs of inflammation. Now the main motive behind the vascular phase is to ensure that there is what? Leukocyte extravasation. That's leukocytes moving from the what? From the vascular compartment. White blood cells moving from the what? The vascular compartment to the site of what? Of injury, in order to initiate the what? The cellular phase of inflammation. So basically this is what inflammation is about. Alright, so see you next time in our future videos. We are going to talk about what? The cellular phase and also the resolution phase as well. Thank you very much.